Welcome to Money Making Conversation. I'm your host, Rashawn McDonald. Each Money Making Conversation talk show is about entrepreneurship and entertainment. I provide the consumer and business owner access to celebrities, CEOs, entrepreneurs, and industry decision makers. It is important to understand that everybody travels a different path to success. That is because your brand is different. The challenges you face in your life are different. So stop reading other people's success stories and start writing your own. Now, you can be motivated by their success because their stories can offer a direction to help you reach your goals through your planning and committed effort. The Money Making Conversation interviews provide relatable information to the listener about career and financial planning, entrepreneurship, motivation, leadership, overcoming the odds, and how to live a balanced life. This is very important as we put these shows, as this program has grown. I've learned that a lot of people have been touched by the information that we give them and consider it life-changing, and I feel blessed to be able to have a presentation like that on a regular basis. My next guest is in studio. He's ready to go. He's an attorney, entrepreneur, philanthropist. He was on top of the world when he was falsely accused and convicted of being a drug kingpin. In 1991, he was sentenced to life in prison plus 72 years on other drug convictions. He is now the executive producer of the new ABC fictional, legal, and family drama series, For Life. Please welcome to Money Making Conversations, Isaac Wright Jr.
Glad to be here. How are you?
Pretty good. How you feel, my man?
I feel great. It's a good time.
It's a good time in your life?
Yes, indeed.
Well, I get up at 4 o'clock every day. And we did that. That didn't freeze you, huh?
That froze me a little bit.
What time do you get up, Isaac? Come on now.
Well, sometimes I'm still up at 4 o'clock in the morning. It just depends on. It just depends on what's on my plate.
Right.
For the following day or the following week. I try to get up as early as I possibly can, but I get to bed so late trying to catch up. I mean, I've been playing catch up lately, especially with the show and
right.
My career and my obligations and responsibilities to the court. Mm-hmm. And so I've been juggling, all these responsibilities. And so it's been a little bit more hectic, but I try to get up. I mean, I could never get up at 4 o'clock in the morning.
Right.
I mean, if I went to bed earlier to that, but I try to get up at least between 7:30 and 8 o'clock every morning.
Now, I had intro was pretty dramatic. You know what I'm saying? In 1991, you were sentenced to life in prison plus 72 years and other 72 years plus 72 years. If life wasn't enough, got 72 years, we could just go for good measure, just in case you're confused about the life. I got 72 years waiting on you.
Yeah.
And now you're sitting here next to me, executive producing an ABC series with my man 50 Cent. Mm. How does that happen, brother? Come on now.
50 was a made man when I met him, obviously. And then in addition to him being a made man in the rap world and in business, he'd already had one of the number one TV shows, Power, on the air.
Stars.
Mm-hmm. And so I met him through a mutual friend. This guy that I met him through, he owned an illegal fight club. He ran an illegal fight club in the Bronx.
And illegal.
It was illegal, yes. They did the fighting things in the warehouses and
right.
in the junkyard.
Was it sanctioned? That's what makes it illegal.
Nothing was sanctioned. It was actually shut down a few times by law enforcement. Mm-hmm. And so it was top of the line illegal. Mm-hmm. But he was successful in getting 200-300 people to come out and watch these fights. And as the popularity and the fight grew, it became tougher to keep it underground. He even had rappers that come out, Fat Joe, Remy Ma. They came out. They would perform during intermission, and he was trying to at an illegal fight club. Yeah.
At intermission, they out there rapping.
Yeah. They in the ring. There was a big ring. They'd build a ring. It was so sophisticated. They had drones that was up in the sky, beaming the camera down from the top angle
right.
and streaming that, to cell phones and everything. I mean, the guy, he really had it put together. The problem was it was illegal. And so, when he went to 50, he's like, 50, man, you take us really, really over the top if you come out and perform. And 50 was like, listen, I got a promoter's license in Nevada, out of Nevada. Mm-hmm. If I come to your fight club, I'm going to lose that. I'm not,
Absolutely.
I'm not going to do that.
Right. Mm-hmm.
He says, when you get legal, I'll come out and perform. And so, they spent tens of thousands of dollars on attorneys trying to get legal. 50 even passed him a couple. Mm-hmm. And 50's attorneys basically told him up front, listen, you're out of your mind. It's never going to happen. It's impossible to just move through the regulatory issues to get something like this legal. It just can't be done.
Right.
And so another individual who's the owner of Rough Riders, Darren Dean, who's a friend of mine, he heard this guy, his name was Hove, he heard him complaining, about not being able to get legal and all the money that he spent. So Darren says, listen, where all these lawyers failed you, I think I got the guy that may be able to help you out. So he introduced me to Hove, and Hove told me his issues, and I actually went to one of the legal flight clubs.
What year was this?
This was in 2015.
Okay, cool.
So I went to one of the fights just to get a feel on what was happening, and I said, okay, you know what? I'll help you, and I got them legal in 2 weeks. And 50 went out and performed, and when 50 went out and performed, he was blown away. Like, how in the world were you able to do this? Who did this? Because when he got there was police on both sides of the street. There was hundreds of people outside. There was police on both sides of the street. So 50 thought when he got there that they were getting ready to shut it down.
Right.
He asked his driver to ask the police, what was up? What's going on? So the police says, crowd control. When the driver actually, he said, we're out here doing crowd control. So 50 was like, ask him, can everybody go? Cops said, oh, go have fun. We're just out here to make sure everybody is safe.
Right. For traffic flow, all that good stuff.
So he went in and performed, and he was like, how the hell did this happen? The guy explained to 50, about me, about my story,
right.
And that I had got them legal. And 50 was like, listen, have him in my office tomorrow, man. I want to talk to this guy. So I sat down with 50.
That guy being you.
Yes, that guy being me. So I sat down with him and we talked, and he's like, would you let me run with this as a TV show? There was some talk in the air about a movie, but 50 was like, nah. His vision was way out there. He was like, nah, people want to hear this.
Let me back up a little bit, Isaac. When you said run with this, what was this you were talking about? What was the concept originally pitched? Okay.
The concept was around a movie. And when he heard the story, he immediately, I can see his mind churning. He said to me, he kind of stopped me in mid. He said, listen, this is a movie can be later on, but this is a TV show. This is something that people want to be inspired over every single week. And I want to be able to be comfortable in telling this story in ways where we can continue to enlighten and continue to inspire and continue to provide hope to people. And so I said, it's cool. Whatever you want to do. I said, okay. And he made it happen. And one of the things that was very, very significant to me in dealing with that decision that he made is that the guy that brought me to him. Now, remember, this is just an idea. There's no contracts. There's no agreements. There's nothing.
Right.
He goes to the guy. He says, listen, I'm going to pay you for a year tomorrow. Come by my office tomorrow. I'll have the cashier waiting for you. That's how confident he was in what he had.
Right.
And what he knew what he could do with it. He started committing himself financially before there was any agreement.
Just locking you down. Okay.
Well, no, he didn't do it to me.
Okay.
He did it to the guy that brought me there. In other words, he said, listen, I'm not leaving you out. You're going to be a part of this too.
Cool.
But what I'm going to do is I'm going to pay you in advance for an entire year. For every episode that I believe I'll be able to get out the first year, I'm going to pay you for that now. And he didn't even speak to, he had spoken to nobody, no writers. Sony was nowhere to be found at that time. ABC was nowhere to be found. But he knew, he saw the road.
Right.
And he committed himself on that road that he saw. And it materialized. He was a visionary. And when I saw that, because I see those things, the experience that I have in trying to survive in prison, in a maximum security prison, and it was the only one
for 7 years, right?
For 7.5 years. It was the only one in the state. So that meant that every undesirable that was there was put in the same place with everybody else. And in order to survive in that environment, you have to learn how to size a person up. In 0.3 seconds, I can size you up, even if you don't open your mouth.
Right.
When he did that, I knew, because I was there, I was talking to him, I was studying him too. Along with he was studying me, I was studying him. I knew I could roll the dice and turn my back. And that's what I did. I rolled the dice, walked out of his office, and here I am.
You happy?
I'm elated.
So 7.5 years in prison.
Yes.
When I read your story, it was that you represented yourself.
Yes.
Why? In trial, the first trial.
The first time, I represented myself from the outset.
But no legal training?
No legal training. All I had was a high school diploma. Most of the grounds that I made and most of the law that I created with a high school diploma while I was in prison. Most of the people that I got out with a high school diploma. And that's one of the reasons why I'm still saying that today is because I haven't been licensed that long because of the challenges that they character.
2017, right? When
2017 is when I actually got licensed. They investigated me. I passed the bar actually in 2008. If I had been licensed after I passed the bar, I would have probably quadrupled what I had accomplished when I was in prison by now. And but what they did was they investigated me for another 9 years, something that should have taken a couple of weeks. They investigated me for 9 years before giving me my license. And what I literally had to do after 9 years had passed, there was a Supreme Court justice. Her name was Virginia Long out of New Jersey. She was one of the justices that made a landmark ruling in my civil case. That for the first time in the history of that state, it made the state liable for conduct of prosecutors. And before, it was counties. It was counties that would have been liable. There was all these immunities that went with it. But my case changed that, and she was one of the judges. She retired around 2015, 16, she retired. And when I found she retired, I went looking for her.
Right.
And I located her in a law firm, a huge law firm, international law firm called Fox Rothschild. I called her up, and she remembered who I was. And she offered me to come in for a consultation. I sat down with her, and when she found out what was going on, she was really appalled about it. It was just incredible to her as a retired Supreme Court justice, because the Supreme Court controls all of that. Right. They're the top dogs when it comes down to not only the judicial system in the state, but also who practices and who doesn't. If there's disciplinary actions, they're the ones who suspend you or disciplines you or revokes your license. They control all of that. So she basically let me know in no small terms that she felt for my situation. She couldn't actually represent me because it was a conflict of interest, being that she was on the bench during my civil case. But fortunately, her husband was also a partner at the firm.
Okay, right.
And so she says, what I'm going to do is I'm going to let my husband represent you.
That's awesome.
That's me. My husband represents me and I represent him. And being that I was on the bench, they understand what that means.
Right.
So he came in, and within 6 months, I had a license. After 9 years, when he came in, within 6 months, I had a license. And there's a picture of me. You can see it on the internet. It's all over the internet, and it's on my Instagram, of me being sworn in. There's a lady with blonde hair, light whitish blonde hair, an older lady, swearing me in. That's her. That's a retired not Chief Justice, but Justice of the Supreme Court of New Jersey.
Congratulations. This problem is nationwide.
Right.
And people are, and it affects predominantly people of color.
Yes.
And so when you hear me say something like that, does it get you mad or motivate you for change?
It doesn't get me mad at all. It motivates me for change. And to be honest with you, and this is a controversial statement that I'm going to make, but I really believe in it. I think as minorities, as blacks, we've been mad for a long time.
Yes, sir.
And I think we should, because being mad takes a lot of energy. And I think if we refocused as a people, refocus that energy on making changes, because we're a powerful people. We really are. And a lot of times, anger has a way of distorting the way you think and the decisions that you make. But if we can refocus a lot of that anger into action, I think we can move mountains as a people. And even for me, being in the situation that I was in, there was room for for a lot of anger, for being enraged.
Right.
And just to give you an example of what I'm saying, there was a time early on when I had decided that I was going to represent myself, and that was
You talking about when you represent yourself in court?
In court, yes.
Okay.
And during my trials, I had made a decision early on that I was going to represent myself, and I remember I was in my cell working on a motion, and I was working almost all night, and I fell asleep in the middle of writing the motion. Mm-hmm. And maybe an hour or two, I woke back up, and I decided that I was going to pick up where I left off, mm-hmm. and I began to read what I had written just to kind of get myself acquainted with it again and start mm-hmm. where I left off. And when I started reading, I began to look around because it seemed to me that there was something wrong. I was beginning to look around to see where those papers were that I was working on, where that motion was that I was working on, because I didn't even recognize what I was reading. It was so overwhelmed with emotion and with anger,
right,
that I didn't recognize myself.
Right.
I didn't recognize the person that had written it.
Right.
And that was a divine moment for me, because it took me somewhere mentally and emotionally that I needed to go, in the sense that I was never going to have the kind of focus that I needed to have in order to get myself out of this situation, being burdened down with negative emotions. And anger is a very negative emotion. Sometimes it's well-placed, but most of the time, anger is a very, very misplaced emotion. The moment I decided that I was going to manage and control that, I had to learn to separate myself from that emotional state. And the moment I did that, I moved into a moment of such clarity mm-hmm. That it was a snowball. Right. The gift right. that God had given me for the
right.
law.
Right.
The first time I picked up the law book, it was like I'd done it all my life.
Which is amazing, because that wasn't the direction you was pursuing your life until this happened.
Had absolutely no interest in the law at all. And never picked up a law book before in my life. And the first time I did it was like I was doing it all my life. Mm-hmm. And that moment of clarity took a gift and turned it into a snowball rolling down a hill. Mm-hmm. So that 7.5 years later, by the time I got back in court, I was so good that I got a veteran police officer to confess on the stand. And that's how I ultimately got out. A veteran cop. 7.5 years before that, he was a detective in the prosecutor's office. 7.5 years later, when I got him back on that stand, he was the chief of the police academy. That's how much he had risen. And obviously he's a more sophisticated individual. And I was able to get him to literally not only confess, but to put himself in jail. I mean, when you confess to misconduct like that, perjured testimony, falsifying police reports, you're going to jail. Mm-hmm. And so, I was just that good 7.5 years later, no law degree, high school diploma, and I did something that lawyers practice their entire life to do.
Wow.
I did that as a person, as a young man with a high school diploma.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Now, when I look at the television series, the lead actor has that anger in him.
Yes.
Anger, of course, it should be there.
Yes.
Because he's in a place
yes.
he's not supposed to be.
Yes.
Your wife, played by Joy Bryant. Mm-hmm. Also, she's living with your best friend, mm-hmm. and then your daughter. Mm-hmm. They're now living with your best friend.
Yes.
In a romantic relationship.
Yes.
And now you're in jail.
Mm-hmm.
What made that character development like that? What was the whole rationale with setting it up like that?
Well, the colloquy I just gave you about what I had to go through to actually get a license.
Yes, sir.
It's a very long time. That's a couple of decades.
Absolutely.
And so creatively, the decision was made to condense that, mm-hmm. So that we can carry the public through some of the triumphs and some of the agonies of defeat that you go through in that process.
Right.
And so, and what the family is going through with you. Mm-hmm. And so Aaron Wallace is a representation of, all those things wrapped up into one. Even the emotions that I was telling you about, one of the things about me having to hide that emotion and having to control it is that it does not give the public what was really going on inside me.
Mm-hmm.
And so what we decided to do is we decided to allow the public to reflect on not only this anger and this agony that Aaron was going through as a character, but also how he has to manage to control it in order to move ahead.
That's key.
That's key.
That's key.
And you have the destruction of family that occurs when you're in prison.
Absolutely.
And when you're in relationships, the destruction of the relationship, the total annihilation of the family nucleus.
Mm-hmm.
And so this conflict between this three-way conflict between Aaron,
mm-hmm.
his best friend,
mm-hmm.
and his wife,
yes,
is a reality.
Mm-hmm.
These things
mm-hmm.
happen
mm-hmm.
In the world. I went in prison. I went into prison with a family, with
right.
a wife and a daughter.
Mm-hmm.
And when I came out of prison, I didn't have my family anymore.
Right.
And so those are the realities of prison for many men
mm-hmm.
In America. I mean, it's very, very difficult to have a life sentence with 7 years on top of it, and people waiting for you to come home. The general consensus is that the power of the government is too large
powerful
for you.
And it's time to move on emotionally, physically, and then you trap with that idea that I'm innocent.
Yes.
Wait for me. So you call. Did you ever give up with that emotional damage that is being done to your family, and the fact that you don't know if you can actually get yourself out of jail?
No, I didn't ever give up. One of the things about dealing with these kind of challenges is that it starts with your mind.
Right.
My reality
mm-hmm.
was that I was going to die in prison. And so
that's right.
But the reason why that was my reality is because someone gave me that reality.
Right.
That reality was given to me.
Right.
And so that wasn't the reality that I created.
Okay.
That was a reality that was given to me. And so what I did was I lived in my reality, the one I created.
Right.
That's why I wasn't going to be a slave to the reality that they created for me.
Which is important.
Which is very, very important.
But you can control your reality.
I can control my reality.
The reality that got you living in is an uncontrolled environment. You don't know what the food next to you going to do
right.
or the food around the corner is going to do.
You don't know if your cell door is going to open 3 o'clock in the morning and someone comes in there with a shank and takes your life. You have no idea what's going to happen to you from one day or the other. And so one of the things that I did was I created my own reality. And that reality was based on my own intellect, the gifts that I had and the tenacity that I engaged in order to protect myself and my family, mostly my family, because
right.
this was not just an attack on me. It was an attack on my family.
Absolutely.
And when you look at the destruction going on around you that you are inside watching, you can't do anything about, you realize that this was more than just about you. Mm-hmm. This is about how it decimates families and communities.
Absolutely. And you were right in the middle of that. Now you're an executive producer. You're given that title for this ABC series.
Yes.
We're talking about Isaac Wright Jr. Your story inspired this series. Yes. It's a fictional series about a legal series and a family dynamics. Mm-hmm. It's on ABC. Mm-hmm. Airs on Tuesday nights. 50 Cent will make a guest appearance on March 24th.
Yes.
What is your role as the executive producer of the series?
Well, executive producers they're the boss. But I mean, that's it.
Okay, you wanted the boss.
Yeah, that's why I said there. There's a number of us. I mean, there's Allison Greenspan,
yes,
Doug Robinson. He's an executive producer. 50
Absolutely.
is an executive producer. Mm-hmm. The big bosses is Sony and ABC.
Right.
And I have ABC with me right now. They're not only my boss, but they're also my partner.
Absolutely, absolutely.
And
but that's where it should be.
That's what it should be.
You want people. I would tell people if you promoting, you're traveling alone. That's not good.
That's
what I'm saying.
That's right.
You got people traveling with you. That's a sign that they care.
Indeed.
And they want to make it happen.
Indeed.
And this is a great series, first of all, because I was emotionally charged by the whole breakdown of that person who. See, here's an interesting thing about the series For Life that we're talking about. That's inspired by your incarceration and your triumph as an attorney now and a philanthropist and an entrepreneur. Is that as he's in prison, and then he gets to go out of prison. He gets to put on a suit, but then he's dictated. Hey.
That's right.
It's time to undress.
Right.
Time to go back to what you really are supposed to be.
Right.
And so that really is the mental tug.
Indeed.
And so that really is what inspires me to say, wow, he's dealing. I root for him. And so this plays out. This is the opening, I guess credits talk about, I used to be one of you guys.
Yeah.
I was free.
I used to be just like you.
I was free. And then all of a sudden, the police busted into my nightclub and found drugs, and then they announced me to be a kingpin, announcer in life in prison. My family has been yanked away from me. My wife, she now is living in a relationship with my best friend, my daughter. I don't know what she's doing in her life, but guess what? I want to reconnect with her, and that is the series. So right there, it sets up a lane of frustration and passion for the character.
Right.
And so the series is tied to the fact that every episode is this. He's developing as a man,
right?
Because he has to redevelop as a man in prison. He's a man outside of prison, but a man in prison is a different person because you're dealing with different dynamics. And so each episode is his journey for not only trying to seek his freedom, but the freedom of other people. Because every time he receives success as a lawyer, then more people are inspired by his efforts. And that's what pushed me to say, I want to see this show, and pushed me to say, I want to see you.
Yeah. That, and you brought up an incredible point, because it's the easiest thing in the world for a judge not to even look at your papers when you put it in. You don't know. They just rubber stamp it. Oh, that's that nonsense. Stamp denied, and move on.
Right.
It takes a certain amount of respect.
Right.
To allow them, to force them to do a double take and say, you know what? I better read this.
Yes.
It takes a certain level of respect. And so what this journey does with For Life, it takes Aaron through that growth.
Aaron Wallace is the name.
Yes, Aaron Wallace. You'll see him moving through that growth where, in that first episode, you saw him win this case. That gave you a glimpse of
a case with some complicated techniques.
And the thing about that, because all these things, we talk about, and they ask me about it. And there was a question to me about, should we do this? And, I was like, because I'm so, my understanding about the system is so intimate. I was like, of course, should you? That shouldn't be a question. Yes. Forge that paper, because here's the thing about this country. In this country, the way the system is supposed to be set up is that it is better for a guilty man to go free than an innocent person to spend a day in prison for something he didn't do. We would rather the guilty to go free than to send an innocent person in prison. That is the way our system of justice is supposed to be set up. That is one of the guiding principles of our system of justice, so that we can ensure that we will do whatever it takes to prevent a person that's innocent from going to prison. And that's not how it's working. It's working differently. And so when you see Aaron making that desperate move, forging this document, he is forging this document. He is doing the wrong thing for the right reasons.
Right.
And the risk that he's taken, you'll see down the line.
There you go.
It's going to come back. That risk is going to come back at him.
Right.
Right. And his family.
Right. Because basically a little other side note is that a lot of people are not happy that he has a law degree in prison.
Right.
He saw a little cool loophole that allowed him to get it. And so every time he goes in front of a judge, they question his technique. Right. They call him a novice. Right. They tell him to do more homework. Right. So he's constantly disrespected. Right. But because he has the way he got the law degree, somebody vouched for him at a higher position. And that now what's happening on the DA side, they hate this. Yeah. So their goal is to be able to stop him from winning. And to crush him. And so that carries, so now you got your enemies, you got your people you root for, you got the family, and you got the prison. So it turns in the prison into like good guys. Right. The angry guys are the DA and this guy named Maskins. Maskins. Yeah. They bad people. Yeah. And so when you see that, and just letting people, why would I watch this series? How would I relate to this series? You're gonna relate because it has a family dynamic in it. You're gonna relate because you feel some type of pain, right? But because somebody is innocently incarcerated, right? And then you realize also these are just regular people. These are just regular people.
It's regular people.
And even when he's found out, one of the guards provides him with information. So they know he's a good guy. And so that is when I love good storytelling. And so good storytelling helps me out when they plug in the reason this action is happening. Why is it happening? Why are we doing this? Because I hate it when you just jump over 3 to get to 5.
Yeah, you equate these dark tunnels where there's the important information to give continuity is missing. But this story is continuity there, and you can follow it, and you can understand why these things are happening, and the things that you don't really understand that's hidden from you in the beginning, it's revealed to you, revealed to you later on.
Yeah.
But I think they did an incredible job. I mean, Nicholas Pinnock is am I pronouncing that right? Pinnock. I'm sorry. I hope he's not listening right now. But Nicholas Pinnock.
We edit that part.
He's an incredible actor. He is so profound in his acting, and you've seen the episode, so I'm speaking to the choir right now. That it has affected me, and it has been therapeutic for me watching him, because it's like watching myself, and the things that he shows outwardly are the things that I know I was feeling inside.
Right.
The
interesting thing about it, Nicholas plays the character Aaron Wallace, which is the lead character in the series For Life, which is on ABC, airs on Tuesday night. The thing about it is that he takes that character with anger so close to the edge, man. I feel nervous when he with the warden. I feel nervous for him. Don't shut up. Dude, would you just be quiet? Because he's always internally mad. And that's what I love about the character, and it makes me nervous. It makes me nervous in a good way. You know what I'm saying? From a viewer standpoint, I'm going, hey, dude, shut up. You about to blow this. Would you just calm down? Because his character just goes so close to the edge all the time. And that's beautiful, man.
It is. And I had nobody to tell me that. I had to learn that from trial and error. And so what's beautiful about it is because that reality not only taps into his humanity, but it also, just like where you were trying to guide him from the TV set.
Yes. Shut up, fool. Shut up. You're pushing too far. When they let him in the because I've seen his anger. So when they let him in the room with the warden by herself, I'm going, okay, please don't grab this woman, start strangling her. Okay, cool. Well, guess what? They gave me the signal. I hope you enjoyed this interview. I've been enjoying it.
Oh, indeed, it was enjoyable.
We went kind of long, but I'm going to keep, they didn't shut me down. I'm going to keep talking to you.
I appreciate it.
The beautiful thing about this show is that it's Tuesday nights. My man 50 Cent will be making a guest appearance.
Cassius is his character. Cassius
on the show, because 50 he does it both ways. 50 created the Power series and got about 15 more shows about to bounce out.
And Havoc is coming with 50.
Oh, I know
Cassius' character Havoc is getting ready to come.
I know it's going to be like that. I think 50 comes no other way. No other way. So it's a must-see series. Every time the show airs, it's a must-see series on Tuesday night on ABC. For Life. I'm here with one of the executive producers. The series is inspired by his life story, Isaac Wright Jr.
Thank you.
You're listening to Money Making Conversation. If you want to hear more Money Making Conversation episodes, go to moneymakingconversation.com. I'm Rushion McDonald. I'm your host.